Okay, Palladium Fantasy Role Playing. This is actually what I would call the flagship game, the first flagship game of Palladium. This is it. The Mechanoids trilogy was a trial run. It had problems. It had training wheels. Palladium Fantasy was it. It was the thing, and it felt it. It felt bigger. It wasn't just a scenario on steroids. It was an actual world. It was an actual Tolkien-esque world where you could exist, make your own stories, and go your own way as a game master. You have your players go their own way. It's big enough for everybody. Psionics and magic were much more fleshed out, much more useful, and you didn't have to, pray to alien beings to get
But
magic.
you could.
You could, but yeah. I mean, there was also traps and pitfalls laid for players who didn't understand what was going on, like the witch or the summoner or the diabolist or whatever. These are trap OCCs.
I want
Kevin's
you,
a little bit
Kevin
of a dick.
and Sean, come on. I want you to talk to them about that because I
'Cause
want to
Kevin
hear.
is-
So I want to hear the discussion, debate on it because I don't fully agree with you on this, but
I
I
know
want to
you
hear
don't agree,
their
but,
side of this.
You think the Earth's a little flat. Apparently, that's fine. But
Squished, yeah.
all these OCCs are a trap. They're a trap to TPK a whole group. That's what they're for. But as long as you don't pick those OCCs, you're fine. And the OCCs themselves, because you have an expanded skill list now, and you are not forced to be a fighter class only or a combat class only. Now you have a whole lot of utility in your belt. Bards are actually useful. And this was 83 when bards were not useful ever. Ever. No, bards always useful. Shut up. Do 50 push-ups. Stop it. So yeah, I mean, outside of say Earth Dawn, outside of Earth Dawn, this is the first game where a support class is just damn useful. So I liked it. And this started the world building train where now it came out after this came out with Pantheon of Gods, and all of it was either strictly or loosely based, but based in some way on real mythos from our past, which you try to stay as true to, and he did. So as true to as you can, and he did for the most part, succeeded. And I just like it as a high magic fantasy role playing game. This is a good deal, and it's built upon the Mechanoids idea and expanded just like it should. It did not disappoint. It did not disappoint at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the history of this like you guys do. I know we played when I was in the Air Force, and unfortunately, I played Robotech and not this when I was in high school. but from the moment I played it, I liked. I'm going to be a broken record because the same thing about Palladium as a whole. I liked how each OCC or RCC in some of the cases here had a definitive. This is what you must do. This is what you can do. And what else do you want to add on to that for some spice on top of that? And so it made every character feel a bit more interesting back in a day and an age when I didn't understand that you could take a basic D&D character and be interesting. Like my whole mantra now, if you don't, it's like, four of us could make fighters in basic D&D, and the modern person, they're just the same thing over and over. No. I chose to go with sword and board. You chose to go rip off your shirt and go with the two-handed weapon because you're on meth all the time. That person over there decided to grab a big pokey thing and ride a horse, and that person over there decided to take a bow and start shooting things. You make your own interesting character. You don't need a book to do that. Well, this, I think, is a good balance of that because it supports a theme. If you wanted to make an archer, any of the man-at-arms, if you wanted to make a type of caster, you definitely fit a theme, but you still have control over that theme. And to me, it was the first game system that I played that, and to this day, the only hybrid system that says, this is your class, know your effing role. Yep. But have some fun with it.
Right.
Be interesting. I shouldn't say have some fun because people get clown shoes in, but be interesting with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can go wrong. Now, do I think first edition or second edition is better? I don't have enough experience. I want to say that we played second edition when we were in the Air Force, but I can't remember.
We did. And in my mind, the biggest difference is SDC. In first edition, SDC didn't exist. All right. So SDC is a thing. And a lot of people don't like it because it's unnecessary. And I agree. The only time SDC actually comes into play in Palladium where I say you need it is in Heroes Unlimited. It's a superhero game. You're supposed to be stronger. You're supposed to be tougher. You're supposed to be able to go through a wall and still get up, maybe a little groggy, but still get up. I get it. But here you get shot with in the neck with an arrow. You're supposed to die, right? You're supposed to die. That is a killing blow. But with the introduction of SDC, it's not.
Well, it's supposed to be cinematic though also.
I understand.
And Kevin does a good job of stating that. For people like me who, what was the term that Grimm used, that hyperrealism?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's an accurate statement, because when I hear hyperrealism, I think overly realistic. But want that verisimilitude, want that realistic style. I need a book to tell me, hey, this is meant to be cinematic. Because I'm otherwise going to be like, okay, this is clown shoes. What are you telling me that? Oh, I can take 4 arrows in the neck and I'm still fine. I can still fight just normal. Like, no, it's one of the things I don't like about abstract hit points from D&D either. I've just never liked that. But when the book comes out and says, look, schmuck, you are kind of playing a movie. You're playing characters with multiple attacks. You're playing characters that do things outside the scope of normal humans. And the world is, it can be a little grungy. It can be a little gritty. You're still, dare I say, a heroic character.
Right.
You're meant to be a bit above the norm.
And you can't do that with just hit points, because hit points is defined as actual physical damage. You get shot in the neck 4 times. I don't care if you only did 1 damage. Dude, you're dying. Yeah. You're dying. Like, oh, it's only 4 paper cuts. Screw you. It's 1 hit point. Let's say you have 20 hit points. That's 1/20th of your life force gone, and you got shot 4 times. You're 20% dead. That means you're dying. But if you have SDC that takes the brunt before you actually take vital damage, that's explainable. It's the same thing. One of the reasons why I like the D20 Star Wars is because they had vitality and then hit points. They had both. And vitality was the cinematic thing to where it explains why stormtroopers couldn't hit shit, because they were always hitting heroic characters who had vitality points. And if you take vitality points, you weren't actually hit. You dodged at the last second and got out of the way, but it tired you. When you run out of vitality, you can no longer dodge correctly. You trip, you fall, whatever. And that's when you actually get shot. And getting shot, like, taking hit point damage, sucks. You die from it. Almost exclusively, you die from it. So don't do it, right? But again, the SDC is a cinematic trope that allows you to take damage, but not really. I don't think it fits in a fantasy role playing game like Palladium. I think it fits in a heroic or a super high power game, like, Heroes Unlimited or Rifts or something like that. I think it fits better in those settings. I don't much like it in Palladium Fantasy, but with everything else it's done, the expanded OCCs, the expanded skill list, psionics, magic, it laid the foundation for everything. And even in the beginning, it was good. It was good. The spells were good. Psionics, people didn't understand a whole lot, but that didn't make it not good. It just means that people didn't understand. And all of the variable OCCs and all of them were useful, because you had an entire world. There was a way to make everyone useful. That was great. So for Star Wise, I have to give it 3.5 again.
Oh, wow.
I have to give it 3.5 again. The reason I took it up again, SDC, I don't think, and it should have been put into Palladium. I understand the reason why to make everything compatible with everything else. Because once you introduce rifts that everything can happen in the same place, same time, you have to have a compatible system across your board. I get it. I don't have to like it. And that lessens Palladium Fantasy while trying to make it
What if
appropriate for
the
Rift.
SDC was, say, I mean, I don't have a good number, but we'll just say it halved enough to say, look, you know, you are a little heroic. You can take a couple of quick hits just to say, ouch, 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 to, you know, run across the room or something. But you know what? That can't last long. What if the SDC was lowered?
That would be, and if the SDC didn't come from skills so much, it came from advancement in your OCC. That way
I
you
got you.
start off as just a guy who you get shot in the neck, you die. But as you gain a couple levels, you can gain 10, 20 SDC per level for the first few
So
levels.
SDC growth similar to hit point growth.
Yeah, but it's a separate thing, and it's
Here's one.
understanding what.
And I'm basing this off. I can't remember the name of the game, but I'm basing this off of a game I played in the early 90s, and I always liked the idea. Hit points never grow. Only the equivalent of it wasn't called SDC, but for here, only SDC grows.
Right.
So your entire life, you have 10 hit points.
Oh, unless you somehow increase your physical endurance attribute.
Yeah, well, for Palladium, yeah, we'll go with that.
Or you work out, eat right, get healthy,
But every level, you have a D6, then another D6. So at first level, yeah, an arrow is probably, no matter what, going to break into your hit points. It might not kill you, but it's going to break into your hit points, which means some sort of permanent injury. The third level, you got a pretty good chance that it's not. I can't remember what arrows do for damage, but even if you use a 9mm gun, because I know more after the bomb, 3d6 damage. The reason I use the combat arms books, and I'm not trying to derail this, but is because of the penetrating value, because of the stun, because bullets kill.
If you don't have SDC and just hit points, that one bullet will likely kill or almost kill the average person. That 3d6 is going to be 10 or 11 damage on average. And the hit points for an average person is 10. So, yeah, that one bullet will probably kill you in one hit because that's what bullets do.
But as a more heroic character, you can start doing, crouching tiger, hidden dragon moves, floating across the ceiling and so forth, because the game is meant to be more cinematic. So, exactly. But anyway, that derails. So you gave this the same rating as Mechanoid. So you think that Palladium Fantasy is on par with Mechanoid? Okay.
Well, no, with the experience, yes.
Okay. I want to ask before I give my review, I want to ask these same two questions. So, what is the positive impact that Palladium Fantasy role-playing game has on the Palladium genre, Palladium universe, whatever? What's the positive side of this game, and what's the negative side of this game?
Okay, that's easy. The positive of this game is that it enhances every other game that came after. The reason being is because the world building started here. You have all of the pantheons that came out of Palladium Fantasy. You have all of the magic and psionics that came out of Palladium Fantasy that went off to be, copied or enhanced in every other book that came after. And all of the gods that were introduced for Palladium Fantasy, the old gods, the great old ones, and all of the pantheon, Greek and Roman and whatever, and Indian, all of the pantheons exist in every other Palladium book as well. And so it's all traced back to Palladium Fantasy. All of this stuff that's in all these other books are traced back to here. It's the progenitor of the world building. This is it. And that's fantastic.
And the bad side, or bad side, negative impact. Well, what are the drawbacks of this? I kind of want to leave that open ended.
The drawback of this is the reason I knocked it down some from 5 stars is because it's just another high magic fantasy world.
Okay.
When it came out, it's just another high magic fantasy world. Whereas Mechanoids was different. It had a different setting than most other games on the market. Had a different premise. Had all that stuff going for it. What are you doing?
I'm getting the next one ready.
Okay. Had all that stuff going for it. And then you come out with Palladium Fantasy, which is a more expansive, more, broad game, sure, but you're using the same old tropes from that many other games have done before. Palladium moved away from that later, but with their flagship game, now, was that necessary to break into the market? Maybe.
I like those tropes myself, but
I understand. But as we see from the later books, it was unnecessary to, keep with the high magical fantasy world and be successful.
Okay. So for me, I give this. So I gave Mechanoids 2.5 stars. Let me write that down just to make sure, so I stay consistent here. So 2.5 for Mechanoids. I still stand by that. For this one, I give it 3.5, which for me is a pretty good score. I'm not Garth Dunn. I don't give everything 4s. But no, I really do like it. If I have issues with it, is that I think some of the classes get a little too specialized. And somebody's going to argue that I mentioned this, but just for example, I played a Dark Priest in one of our games. And the things that you have to do in order to be that Dark Priest tell me that either it should be an NPC or I can't remember all the ins and outs of it, but it's too confined in a box, not with skills, but with its powers. All the idiosyncratic powers you get from it. Second edition takes a lot more time to make a character than first edition, as Violence Solves Everything showed me. There's a lot more stuff to it. Got riftified in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think most of that is unnecessary. Like you said, a unified system, great. Maybe this is an impetus for a third edition, where it's like, look, we like a lot of the changes, a lot of the growth with it, but maybe tone it down just a touch. Except for riffs. Let riffs be the king crazy,
riffs
right?
Be riffs,
Yeah, all right.
Over the top, out of this world type crap.
The problem with that, though, is that probably require him to write a whole ton of new source books or whatever, and people don't want to do that.
You need 1 or 2 extra conversion books, and that's a thing.
Now that was the bad. Oh, the real quickly, things like the Witch, the Summoner, the Diabolist. I like them. I really do. But Heathen Dog's not wrong in some sense of it. One, very slow burn for some of them. Yeah. And I don't mean leveling up. I mean, gotta take a week to summon this. I gotta learn power words. I gotta do these things, which sounds great for role playing, but when you're in the game, I've seen more game masters just hand wave that stuff. Or when I'm talking to them, like, yeah, I just hand wave that, whatever. But that's the Diabolist's power. The Diabolist's power is he knows all the words. I don't worry about that. I give it to everybody. It's just, that's okay. And that happens way more often than I like. So I would think that there might need to be some class rejiggering in there. Now, the good side of it though is I love the cinematic play. As much as on the outside, looking in, I'm like, SDC, got high-powered characters, person can take 4 arrows to the face. It plays out well. When you start looking at it and say, wait a minute, but I got 4 actions around, yeah? So I could launch 4 arrows. So those 4 arrows hit his face 4 times in the same round. Yeah, that means the game's still only lasting 4 or 5 rounds, right? Before things are done. So it's really not lasting any longer. Just you get more neat things that you can do during a round. I can get with that.
You just have to pay for more arrows.
Just got to pay for more arrows. I'm not as sold on the magic system of Palladium as some people are. I know you guys love it. A lot of people love it. I've seen the magic be totally broken in the game.
Carpet of adhesion.
There you go. Just go back to the game that I think you played in when Bob was playing that ogre magic user. First of all, ogres shouldn't be magic users. Secondly, you put a couple of those spells together. Now, a game master can adjust it, but you know how people are with things like that. Yeah. Ultimately, though, and everybody knows that's followed us that I don't like psionics in any game, any book, any movie. I hated powder. Psionics is just a garbage concept. But Palladium's rendition of it fits well to the game. If you want quick, fast acting, can just keep popping them out, you want psionics. If you want this might take a second, but I'm gonna hook you up.
And you take magic.
Then you take magic, and I like that. I like that balance in there. And I ultimately,
I get it. The reason being is because in most games, psionics just ends up being a different flavor of magic.
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas in Palladium, they are distinctly different and have different purposes.
Perfect. That's a great point you make there, because what is a sorcerer in 3rd edition D&D? Just a psionic. That's all it is. It's just, we want psionics in the game. We want, so anyway, I give it 3.5 stars. I like it. That's a good score from me. It is a game that if somebody says, if somebody local is like, hey, I'm playing and I've got time and I trust the person as a dungeon master or game master, I'm in. I like the game conceptually, both the high powered side, believe it or not, which is normally not me, but the grittiness of it. Rune weapons, geez. Rune weapons will ruin your day, buddy. So yeah. Anyway, let's I could say more, but I'll be rambling. So